Do you hear that? Sounds like the mothership is landing, bringing all y'all galactic travelers to enjoy this stream of consciousness. We're here in Central California, and it's been raining. Thank you, El Nino gods. We need it. In the previous video, talked about growth without limits. If you haven't seen that video, you're going to want to jump back to it before you watch this one. In growth without limits, the video titled Growth talked about how there is not necessarily a solution that I can offer to the dilemma of growth without limits. But after making that video, it occurred to me that there are things that seem rather apparent that we can start to work towards in our labors of life to help bring about change. Now, bringing about change in terms of limiting our growth brings us to the topic of this video: economies of scale. So, when we think of economy, when we think of the word economy and how we typically hear it used in news reports, in political debates, it's always being discussed in mainstream terms, being discussed in terms of growth. How can we grow the economy? How can we create more jobs? Production is up. And whenever production is down or jobs are down, employment's down, the economy is in stagnation, that's bad. But that's because our livelihood within our culture, within our cultural narrative, within our system of maintaining our lives, our livelihood, we are dependent upon perpetual growth, perpetual increase in production capacity, increase in consumption of those products that we are producing to maintain our well-being, to maintain our livelihood, to maintain the economy. It's cyclical. It's a perpetual scenario, circumstance of growth. And the reason this is a problem is because it's this perpetual growth, producing products when we don't necessarily need them, that is causing a massive devastation on our Earth's ecozone. The whole ecology, the whole life force, this biological system that creates the diversity, catalyzing well-being and evolution on our planet. It's what creates homeostasis, the balance of ecosystems, bioregions. This is important if we as humans, as a species, want to continue to exist. We have to preserve our habitat, and our habitat is not separate from other habitats. It's all interdependent. So, solutions. Economies of scale. Now, our economy of perpetual growth, growth without limit, unbridled growth, is a macro economy. We have microeconomies working within this macro economy. The macro economy being the national system including national and international firms, companies, organizations, and the micro scales, including local business owners, local production of goods, local services, etc. So, if we look at some of the macro systems of production that are causing major problems, for example, food, packaging, and transportation, we can see that growing produce here in California to be shipped over to New York and Asheville and all across the country and to other countries is creating a very large amount of atmospheric carbon and other air pollutants. It's demanding a lot of fossil fuel. It's creating unnecessary labor in order to transport that goods. Now, of course, there is a huge benefit for us of having food, to stick with that example, transported over long distances, and that's that we can have fresh produce in the seasons such as winter, when fresh produce won't grow in the more northerly latitudes. So we bring it up from Mexico. But the cost of that being atmospheric pollution and resultantly global warming, climate change, melting of the ice caps, rising sea levels. Goodbye, Indonesia. Goodbye, Manhattan. Goodbye, Pier 39 of San Francisco. The costs of our macro scale processes might not be worth the benefits. So, if we look at micro scale practices, examples of potential solutions to reduce impact on our habitat would be things like locally grown food, organic, avoiding packaged products, because anything that's made of plastic or rubber, unless it's actual rubber from a rubber tree, which we don't really have anymore, anything from plastic or rubber is a petroleum compound. And what is petroleum? Petroleum is fossil fuel. It's an oil product. All these things coming from the fuels that are causing the problem. So by eating more locally, we reduce the need for packaged products because we're eating them in a closer time from when they're harvested. And by eating locally, we're reducing the distance from the farms, so that cuts down on fossil fuel use. Now, this is a major example, our food system, of how we can reduce our impact by stepping away from the macro system, the macro economy, into a more localized micro scale. There's many more examples of how we can enact our practices, our consumer habits, our production systems on a micro scale with local business. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but hopefully this has got the wheels turning into the effects of our national and international systems of barter and trade. And think about ways that you can make a change by living closer to home. What can you eliminate from your life that you don't need? What can you do to buy more locally? These are things that we can do in our lives to directly impact real world change and hopefully make a better world for the people of the future and for all life. This is Resonant Being.